Welcome back, or if you're new to my channel, this is Automotive Anonymous, and today I have a lot of valuable information I've collected regarding my Outback Wilderness and its miles per gallon in some pretty extensive testing I've done over the last few weeks, in which I was able to find the average and the outlier miles per gallon at 80 miles an hour, 75, 70, 65, and 60. And since we all live in different areas, we all have different speed limits, and I was curious to find out what this does on average at each speed limit. And I know a lot of you guys do have the concern that the Turbo Subaru, it just doesn't get the fantastic gas mileage that you were hoping for. And in many cases, it can be pretty temperamental. So let me just say that the results are quite interesting. But before I share the numbers with you guys, you probably should know the parameters for my testing measurements. In every run, the vehicle is warmed up to its operating temperature. And then once at speed, I reset the trip odometer to only count the actual speed I'm going. I maintained cruise control with eyesight, and if I saw up ahead that there was slow moving traffic, I made sure to get out of the lane so that I could stay at a constant speed. And then every test was for 20 miles on the same stretch of road, and in fact, over the 20 miles, the elevation increases about 400 to 500 feet, so that's not going to help the MPG be any higher than it otherwise would be going the other way. And then in every run, I just had the same basic Maverick gas, which was 87 octane, and it's not non-ethanol free or anything like that. It's just the basic stuff that you guys often would have in your car. And then keep in mind that these miles per gallon numbers are probably skewed just a little bit high because I'm eliminating the warm-up time and the speed increases to the limit. This is just purely if you're going on a nearly flat road at these speeds. What can you expect with the main factors influencing it at that point is just being wind speed and other basic parameters like how density altitude changes each day. And then I also did not hand calculate the math because on my Outback, when I did that originally, it's about 1 to 2% off compared to what it would be hand calculated versus what the computer reads, which is actually pretty close. And in fact, probably the closest way I could test this exact test, because I'm only measuring certain aspects of my driving, often resetting the trip, compared to something like my old Crosstrek when I had a 2019. That was actually about 5% too generous for what the trip or the computer thought you got compared to the actual hand calculated math. But this Outback is close enough that 1 or 2% is not going to make that much of a difference. And now, starting with 80 miles an hour, on average, the oil temp ranged between about 198 when I started the test up to about 203 to 207. The outside temp ranged between about 28 degrees Fahrenheit up to about 39. So this is definitely a winter test. And then tire pressure is about 35 psi all around. The worst run was about 20.6 miles per gallon, so I'm assuming that was a day that was windy and not in my favor. The best day was 26.6, but the overall was about 22.5, and when you're going 80 miles an hour, at least when I am, the car revs to about 2200 RPM. Next is 75 miles an hour. That one, the oil temp starts a little bit lower, sometimes as low as 189, and then it stays a little bit lower, getting up to only 205. Tire pressure, again, was about 35 psi every day, and the outside temp was pretty similar in the 30s to the low 40s. And my overall average MPG was 23.5, so I only gained about 1 mile per gallon on average with my testing by going 75 rather than 85. And then the average RPM was about 2,000, so if you're already speeding like that, you might as well just go 80 if that's the speed limit, because you're only saving 1 mile per gallon. And here comes the big differences. When you're going 70, the oil temp started at about 190 on most days and only got up to about 201 with a high of 203. PSI was still about 35, temperature was still in the 30s outside, and at 70 miles an hour, my average RPM was about 1850. But the average MPG was 27, and the highest that I had was about 31. The lowest I had was about 23.5, which again is what I was getting at 75 regularly. But 65 miles an hour and below is really the sweet spot. Oil temp, again, just a little bit lower as you'd expect because the engine's not having to work as hard. PSI was fantastic. Outside temp, nothing different with these runs. The lowest MPG I got at 65 was 26.6. Meanwhile, the highest was about 36. So for being where the EPA rates these at, in every test I got at or up to 10 miles per gallon above EPA rating. And it only had to rev about 1700 to 1750 on average, which the average MPG at 65 miles an hour was 31.5. Can't complain about that. However, when I did the 60 mile an hour testing, I didn't do quite as many runs, so I don't have as much data on that. But all the parameters, as you expect, are basically the same. The oil temp was in the low, maybe 192, high, maybe 198 to 201. PSI still 35 to 37. Outside temp, though, did start to get a little bit warmer by the end of the week when I was doing this one to wrap up the video. And overall, RPM at 60 miles an hour is only 1,600. Average mile per gallon is about 30 and a half. So I didn't have as much testing as I did on the 65 mile an hour run, but the average MPG is fairly similar, averaging a little bit over 30. But the best miles per gallon I got on my testing was a couple hybrid tests. They were still 20 miles, but one for half of the test I was going interstate speed at 72 miles an hour, and then the other half I pulled off and did the other 10 miles of highway going about 50 miles an hour, and I actually averaged 37.2 combined. And then there was another one where I went 37 miles for most of the way, and it actually averaged 40.3 miles per gallon. Well, there you have it, guys. That's my testing. 70 miles an hour or faster. The Outback with the turbo really doesn't do very well. In fact, getting low 20s most of the time is honestly pretty sad. But then on the other end, if you're actually going, highway speed, which typically is rated about 65, and likely what this was EPA tested at, it can do drastically different than what the EPA numbers are on this. Hence why I have a lot of videos where I've talked about how I can get 32 to 34 miles per gallon if I'm going 65, and in some cases higher 30s, going even slower. So when you're really not having to rev it out very much, when you're in the low mid-teens and the turbo is really not being used other than to provide the low end torque needed to sustain the power, it's honestly really impressive, and I had a lot of fun making this video. If you guys want to see more videos like this with more testing on maybe a different octane, a different gas station, or even, maybe my Miata, my other car, let me know in the comments below. Otherwise, if this was helpful to you in any way, please like the video, show your support that way if you want to, and subscribe if you haven't already. Otherwise, I wish you the best. I hope you found value in this, and I can't wait to see you on the next one. See ya. But if you're still listening to this and you have any interest in finding out more information about the Turbo Outbacks, such as how they do on a road trip, or how to change their oil, or maybe what their secret features are, or how to set that pin code that's underneath the back hatch area, and how to get in the vehicle without your keys, or you want to know more about my LED light bar, or just in general how the vehicle has held up over 2.5 years and 36,000 miles, you can find any of those videos on my channel. And I hope they serve you well. I hope they help you out in your decision if you're considering buying an Outback, or if you have one and you maybe want to know what to expect, or you want to learn a little bit more about it. That's what I'm trying to do, is just to help you out. Anyways, take care.